night Keir Starmer's world crumbled, a political reckoning in North London. Picture this. It's gone midnight in Downing Street. The building that once felt like home now echoes with an uncomfortable silence. The Prime Minister sits alone in his study, tie loosened, sleeves rolled up, staring at election results that read like a political obituary. 20-point swing. 8-point defeat. In his own backyard. This isn't just another political setback. This is the moment Keir Starmer realized that the very foundations of his leadership might be crumbling beneath his feet. The West Hampstead ward result wasn't supposed to matter. It was a local council election, the kind of midterm political noise that usually gets buried beneath headlines about interest rates and celebrity scandals. But when the Liberal Democrats snatched victory from Labour with a devastating 54.4% to 21.2% margin, it became something far more sinister, a political earthquake with Starmer's name written all over the aftershocks. You see, West Hampstead isn't just any constituency. It's nestled in the heart of Camden, walking distant from Starmer's own Holborn and Street Pancras seat. This is Labour heartland, or at least it was supposed to be. The kind of place where red rosettes are being passed down through generations like family heirlooms. But on that cold February night, tradition meant nothing. The voters had spoken, and their message was brutally clear. They'd had enough. The Liberal Democrats didn't mince words about their victory. They called it a Gaza backlash in Starmer's own backyard, and suddenly the Prime Minister found himself confronting a truth he'd been desperately trying to avoid. His careful calculations on foreign policy, his attempt to balance international diplomacy with domestic politics, had backfired spectacularly. The very community that should have been his strongest supporters had turned their backs on him. But here's where the story gets truly fascinating, because this wasn't just about Gaza. Oh no, that would be far too simple for British politics. This was about something much deeper, much more personal. This was about a man who'd spent his entire political career building a reputation as steady, reliable, principled, only to watch it unravel in real time. Consider the sequence of humiliations that led to this moment. First, there were the disability benefit proposals that sparked outrage across his own party. Starmer had to perform an embarrassing vote farce, publicly retreating from policies his government had only recently championed. The image of strength he'd cultivated during his opposition years suddenly looked more like stubborn inflexibility when faced with genuine criticism. Then came the warnings from within his own ranks. Labour insiders, speaking to the New Statesman with a kind of brutal honesty that only comes from genuine panic, suggested that not only could Starmer lose his seat, but cabinet ministers where Streeting and Shabana Mahmood face the same fate. It is not inconceivable that Keir, Wes and Shabana might all lose their seats, one insider confided. Imagine being Prime Minister and having your own party openly speculate about your electoral demise. The political mathematics are genuinely terrifying for Labour. They are facing what strategists are calling a worst-of-all-world scenario, squeezed from the right by Reform UK and from the left by a coalition of Greens, Independents, and potentially Jeremy Corbyn's rumoured new political venture. It's like being caught in a political pincer movement with nowhere to run. And Reform? They are laughing all the way to the ballot box. While Labour has been defeated 21 times since the May 2025 local elections, losing more council seats than any other party, Reform has picked up 27 seats. They become the political equivalent of vultures, circling overhead as Labour support base fragments before their eyes. The Andrew Feinstein factor adds another layer of complexity to this unfolding drama. Last year's general election saw this pro-Gaza independent candidate come second in Starmer's own constituency. Sure, Starmer retained his seat with an 11,572 majority, but that's a political equivalent of a warning shot across the bow. The message was clear. Next time might be different. What makes this particularly delicious from a political drama perspective is the sheer irony of it all. Starmer built his leadership on the promise of making Labour electable again. He systematically dismantled Corbyn's legacy, positioned himself as a sensible alternative, the grown-up in the room who could appeal to Middle England. Yet here he is, potentially vulnerable to the very forces he thought he'd neutralized. The West Hampstead result exposes a fundamental tension at the heart of Starmer's project. His trying to be all things to all people, progressive enough for the urban liberal base, centrist enough for swing voters, tough enough on security issues to neutralize conservative attacks. But in trying to please everyone, his ended up satisfying no one. The left sees him as a betrayer of Labour values, while the right views him as unconvincing in his newfound moderation. What's particularly striking is how personal this defeat must feel. Politicians often talk about local elections being about local issues, but when your own neighborhood rejects your party by such a crushing margin, it becomes impossible to maintain that pretense. This isn't abstract electoral mathematics. This is a postman, the local shopkeeper, the neighbors you pass on morning runs, all deciding you're not worthy of their support. The timing couldn't be worse either. With talk of potential Palestinian statehood recognition in September and ongoing international pressure over Gaza, Starmer finds himself trapped between competing demands. Move too far in one direction, and he loses more traditional Labour voters. Stay the course, and he risks further hemorrhaging of support to left-wing alternatives. But perhaps the most damaging aspect of this defeat is what it reveals about Starmer's political instincts. Great political leaders have an almost supernatural ability to sense which way the wind is blowing, to position themselves ahead of public opinion rather than constantly playing catch-up. Starmer's response to various crises, from disability benefits to Gaza, suggests a leader who's always one step behind, reacting rather than leading. The psychological impact cannot be understated. Imagine being Prime Minister, the most powerful person in the country, only to have your own local area effectively give you a vote of no confidence. It's a political equivalent of being rejected by your own family. Every morning walk through Camden, every local engagement, every constituency surgery becomes a reminder of that stinging defeat. The broader implications extend far beyond Starmer's personal anguish. If the Prime Minister isn't safe in his own backyard, what does that say about Labour's prospects nationally? Opposition parties smell blood in the water, and nothing emboldens political opponents quite like the scent of vulnerability. The Liberal Democrats, emboldened by their West Hampstead success, will undoubtedly be eyeing other Labour-held seats where similar dynamics might apply. They've proven that the Labour coalition can be fractured, that years of assumed loyalty can evaporate overnight when voters feel betrayed or ignored. Reform UK, meanwhile, continues its methodical advance through former Labour strongholds. Their 27-seat gain compared to Labour's 21-seat loss tells a story of political momentum that should terrify anyone in red. They are not just picking up Conservative voters. They are attracting working-class Labour supporters who feel abandoned by Starmer's metropolitan politics. The genius of this political moment lies in its completeness, as a narrative arc. Starmer's rise was built on the promise of competence over charisma, steady leadership over revolutionary rhetoric. Yet here he sits, facing challenges that require exactly the kind of inspirational leadership he's never claimed to possess. The very qualities that got him to Downing Street might be precisely what prevents him from staying there. What's particularly British about this entire saga is the understated nature of the crisis. There are no dramatic resignations, no explosive parliamentary scenes, just a quiet accumulation of electoral defeats and polling disappointments that gradually erode political authority. It's death by 1,000 cuts, administered with that peculiarly British combination of politeness and ruthlessness. The West Hampstead defeat also highlights the changing nature of British politics. Traditional party loyalties are breaking down, replaced by issue-based voting that can swing dramatically from election to election. Voters are increasingly willing to abandon parties they supported for decades if those parties fail to reflect their values on key issues. For Starmer personally, this must feel like a betrayal of everything he believed about British politics. He's a man who rose through the ranks by understanding systems, by working within established structures, by building consensus through careful negotiation. But modern politics seems to reward the very qualities he lacks: emotional connection, authentic passion, the ability to inspire rather than merely administrate. The cruel irony is that many of Starmer's critics acknowledge his intelligence, his legal expertise, his fundamental decency as a human being. But politics isn't just about being right. It's about being convincing, about making people feel something beyond mere intellectual agreement. And that's where this whole project might be fundamentally flawed. The question now isn't just whether Starmer can recover from this defeat, but whether he possesses the political skills necessary for such a recovery. Great politicians bounce back from setbacks by doubling down on what makes them unique, by finding new ways to connect with voters, by demonstrating growth and adaptation. But Starmer's entire brand is built on consistency and reliability, qualities that make dramatic reinvention almost impossible. As the Prime Minister sits in that darkened study, processing the implications of West Hampstead, he must surely be grappling with a possibility that is simply not built for this level of political combat. Opposition is one thing. You can be forensic, methodical, prosecutorial. Government requires something different entirely. The ability to inspire, to unite, to make people believe in a vision that extends beyond mere competence. The beautiful tragedy of British politics is that it has a way of humbling even its most careful practitioners. Starmer thought he had all the angles covered, all the risks calculated. But politics isn't mathematics, and voters aren't variables in an equation. They are human beings with emotions and aspirations and grievances that can't be managed away through clever positioning and focus group-tested messaging. So here we are, witnessing what might be the beginning of the end for one of the most meticulously planned political careers in modern British history. Not through scandal or incompetence, but through the simple, devastating realization that being right isn't always enough. Sometimes, in politics as in life, you need to be something more than merely correct. You need to be compelling. And as a result, from West Hampstead continue to reverberate through Westminster's corridors of power, one thing becomes crystal clear. Keir Starmer's greatest challenge isn't his political opponents or challenging economic circumstances or international crises. His greatest challenge is proving that he's a leader Britain needs, not just a leader Britain settled for. The clock is ticking, the pressure is mounting, and the voters, even in his own backyard, are watching. Time will tell whether this moment becomes a footnote in a successful premiership or the beginning of the end for a political career that promised so much but delivered something far more ordinary. Either way, the night West Hampstead fell will be remembered as the moment everything changed for Keir Starmer. And deep down, in that quiet study in Downing Street, he knows it too. That's the story of modern British politics. Folks, unpredictable, unforgiving, and absolutely unmissable. The game is afoot, the stakes have never been higher, and we're here to break it all down for you. If you want to stay ahead of every twist, every turn, every political earthquake that's reshaping our nation, make sure you're subscribed to UK Connors. Trust me, you won't want to miss what happens next.